Well, it's all in this one. The traction maintenance depot is taking shape. There's a bit of hernia building and a good old train ride. Hi, welcome back to Chadwick Model Railway. I'm Charlie. And if you're in a caring mood and you can see the dent in my head, it's because I bent down to pick something up in the bathroom and I stoofed my head into a metal towel rail. The injuries we attain in our senior years, let's say. Right, what's this video about? Well, I've got this board here to do a quick run through and then we'll pop that back into place. And then I intend to show you right around the layout on exactly where we are and how I mean to make progress from here. Right, but before any of that, I thought I'd mention another little avenue that I've been thinking about. And that is I bring out my videos once every 2 weeks and hopefully I don't miss one out. You know, Christmas I might sort of take a 3-week break, such luxury. But occasionally people are sort of emailing in and asking me to do a video on a specific item, which isn't very popular. So I think to myself, well, I can't really make a half-hour video on one certain subject because one person likes it, because it's not there for everyone and really it wouldn't be the best use of time. So to that end, if you fancy something like a 10-minute video on a particular subject, which isn't too, you know, in the depths of life, as it were, then, you know, if you suggest it, I'll see what I can do. I'm a Digitrax kind of guy and I work in 00 DCC. So asking me questions about lens stuff and DigiKey stuff and iTrain, it really isn't going to help because I don't have that expertise, but I do understand Digitrax, train controller to a certain extent, obviously DCC, the DCC world and that kind of stuff. So if you fancy a video on a certain subject, I don't know, DS64s or train control or whatever, and you think I can help, but it will be a short video, like a 10-minuter, then I might look at doing that and then just bring them out, not on a regular routine, but every, you know, might be once a month, once every 2 months, I'll drop a Chadwick shorty, as it were, in the middle of the 2-week blocks. Anyway, something to think about, and if you can come up with some decent subject, then leave them in the show more tab, not the show more tab, leave them in the comments section and I'll look into it. Meanwhile, back to the layout. Now in the last video 179 I believe it was, I'd started with this board and I put a couple of points in and just ran the basic wiring. Well, you'll be pleased to know that it's all finished. There's my little flap down flap, as it were, with all the components in. It's worth mentioning that this is probably the most complicated board that I have ever made, and because this house is probably not our forever home, I've made it somewhat removable, because if we do move house and I'm going to, the whole layout goes into a double garage or whatever, I can simply cut the tracks here and the effort put into this board and the money would not be wasted. Now to connect this board to the other board, I've used one of these plug-in connectors. And as you can imagine, they work quite easily because this is being the male connector, here in goes the female, and you have a set of cables. Now, the other half of this cable is on another board, but as you can see, the cables from power to 0.79, the TMD block and the PM42 power district and an earth cable all come into here. But if I want to move house or whatever, then I can simply disconnect this without severing cables, and it makes it so much easier for fault finding between boards. So I can just pull this off, and if the fault persists, then I know it's not within the TMD area. And here's the other part of that connector, bringing it in from this board. So that board 22 goes in place and this one then simply plugs in underneath. All straightforward. There's a few spare terminals here because in case I need to run cables for signals and any other sort of ancillaries. So these are the 3 types of terminal I use. I'm sure you've seen these. In certain situations I cut these and make one red and one black to utilise the terminals better. These are the Wagon connectors, though I'm told it's pronounced Vago with a sort of like a V, and it says on here about cutting them down to 11 millimeters. Hopefully you can see here where I've just used a bare wire, and here I've used a ferrule, and you can see the contacts are made underneath, and the excess pokes out the other side, so it gives you an assurance of a good connection. If I just open this one up here, and then if you're into using ferrules as I am, when you poke them in, you can see they go in and make a very good contact. And these things really are good stuff, and they're used in domestic wiring, though I can't bring myself to put them in my house at the moment with 240 volts AC. And then obviously this is the other one, but these are the three connectors now that I use, and if you're interested, all the details of these will be in the Show More tab. Now, as you can imagine, this board isn't exactly light, and if you want to sort of work on a hernia, the best thing you can do is tackle something that's a little bit too wide, a little bit too heavy and cumbersome, and somehow on your own cart it around your railway room. Now fortunately this board will slide in into place on some sort of wooden runners, as it were, and then it will slide into place. But if you want to see what fear looks like in a railway modeller's face, it looks something like this. Anyway, it's in and stable. It's a case of whipping around the other side now and hooking it over an upright, and all will be well, he said, hopefully. And there she goes, over the top of that last little upright, into place. Beautiful. And to be perfectly honest, it does line up very well. Well, now the board's in place, it doesn't seem that complicated at all when you compare it to the underside. It's attached by a couple of these little angle brackets, so bolted through onto the plinth of this one and the underside of that one, and the boards are in, and they're not, really isn't going anywhere. These little things are available from B&Q. I put in these two little pieces of track here, though not in a permanent way, as it were. So if this board needs to come back out, I'm not going to have to undo them. I'm just going to hold them in with one of those little Pico screws, and hopefully when I trundle this coach through, it should show that I've got a reasonable smooth run through. This track here is slightly more sharp. It's actually a radius 3 piece of track, as this track setter piece will show. Here is the little catch point I mentioned. So when this is when the TMD side is in operation, this point will be in that position there, so trains can't go trundling off onto the main line. All good. To connect these tracks together, all I did was I slid the two metal fish plates back on this piece of track, popped it into place, and then obviously with a pair of snipe nose pliers I've moved them through. So it's all pretty good. It seems to work okay. So I shall connect it up shortly, and we'll run a train or two along it and see if it actually functions. So here is our little flip down panel. Beautiful. And I've just sort of temporarily wired it up to put power into these two DS64s, which power all the points on board 22. So that should be good. And whilst I'm on the subject of DS64s, a couple of weeks ago I put out a word saying that I need some and you can't buy these anymore. They've been replaced by something else. And incredibly, two people came up with two DS64s each and gave me them. And I am exceptionally grateful for them. I won't mention their names and embarrass them, but gentlemen, you know who you are, and I'm extremely grateful. Thank you. Right, so if I pop this back up out of the way, into its rightful position, and those two tracks, the ones that join from board to board, I've just lashed them up and connected them on, but haven't put the cables in properly in case I need to whip this board back out. I've got 2 points, I shouldn't do this, that are going to bridge from this board to the next one. There's a double slip and a right hand, I think. So if I need to take this board out again, it's quite simple. Disconnect those 2 wires, pull those 2 bits of track out and lift it out. Lift it out, what could possibly go wrong? Right, power it up, get a loco, and let's see if it works. So we're all ready to go. I've got my little 08 shunter over there in the corner. I need to press button C on this controller to flash up the layout. Then I need to turn on track power, power on, and then hopefully using one of these little voltage testers, beautiful, we have power. Okay, let's bring my little shunter down. And the main worry here is that when it hits the points, the frogs are the wrong way around, which will obviously cause it to short out. And we're good. Oops. Test the frog. Beautiful. Then finally, pop it onto this other point that's doesn't seem to be connected, just to test this frog. So we're going backwards now. Yep, they all work. Beautiful. Lovely. Finally, before we leave this little area, it's worth mentioning about why I'm so focused on frogs and powering my points from a separate controller. You see, if you power your points from your track and you get a short, you can't clear it. You have to use the hand of God. Whereas if I put my little 08 here and I have the point set against it, it hits the frog, and as you'd expect, there's a short and it will stop. You might be able to hear a clicking noise from the PM42. Now if I change that point, which is point 40, so switch 40, and the shunter carries on its travels. And the worst thing you want to do is say, oh, we can't do this, and you have to pick up your loco, take it off the short, then change the point, because you have to remove the short before you can do it, and carry on. Now, in an exhibition or something, that'd be an absolute nightmare. And also, it'd be a nightmare here at Chadwick because of the size of the fiddle yard. It, if you hit a point the wrong way around, fine. You don't need to get your hands in there and start shuffling the whole train backwards off the point that's set wrong. You just need to change the point. Right, how about a layout tour? Now, to give you an idea of the space the current Chadwick takes up, on the left hand side, that's the west wall as it were, that measures 3.2 metres. And then running back onto the back wall where the Chadwick Parkway sign is, that's the north wall, and that one measures 5.1 metres. As we swing around coming past the viaduct and then on towards the first helix, this wall here is 5.6 metres. So clearly there is a fair amount of space. The walkway between the two areas is 0.9 of a metre. Now, it would be fair to say that Chadwick actually grew out of a previous Chadwick, as most layouts do as they develop, and this one used to be a straight kind of rectangle, not quite as wide as this. It used to come around, make a turn, and then over the viaduct. But the problem with that was there was a duck under, and to be perfectly honest, in next to no time, my knee started hurting, so I then realised that I had to find a new design. And I came across James at DCC Train Automation, and we spoke about building a Helix. Interesting stuff. And the first Helix that I went for, this is Helix 1 over here, this being Helix 2, was actually built off-site. And under James's supervision, we sort of struggled along and I learnt my craft, as it were. And then eventually it was brought over here in the back of his van and installed. And I must confess, it performs rather well. I did install DCC Concepts Power Base throughout to give any steam locos that I have a decent chance to get up it. And to be perfectly honest, as I've shown in previous videos, the DCC Concepts power base does work rather well. Now I thought it easier than doing a walkthrough is I'll take a drive through. So here we are coming off Helix 1 and we're going into the East Fiddle Yard. You can see coming the other way a 125 unit, and that's the through line from the West Fiddle Yard. In the East Fiddle Yard there are 8 tracks, one of which is a through line, so there are 7 for train storage. Each is capable of holding 2 trains, so 14 trains in all, and there we are. We can see my reverse livery Pullman. We've got King George V here with a couple of Pullman carriages, a 47 on the far left, a DMU. We look into the West Fiddle Yard and see the Class 50, a High-Mech, another DMU, a Class 25 coming up here on the left, a ballast train in the west, a Western, and a warship on a parcel service. The West Fiddle Yard is similar to that in the east, but can only hold 11 complete trains. So it's a good number. At the end of the day, it's 25 complete trains can be held down in the fiddle yards with leaving the access lines clear. As we approach the bottom of Helix 2, we're underneath board 22, the one we installed earlier. And there I am standing in apprehension. So as we hit Helix 2, we start the climb up. And there you can see Helix 1 on the other side with a 125 making its way back down again. You can see the rest of the room here now, so you can get appreciation of the size available, though I'm adamant that I wouldn't use it all for my railway. And then we come off of the top of Helix 2, and there's the new construction taking shape for my ideas about the TMD, and there's my spare Digitrax controller. And then we head into the more scenic section, if only I'd processed it, of the upper level. There's the lines that travel off to the TMD, and as we come around the corner we get towards the station area. As we can see the polystyrene there on the left hand side, that will all be hidden with a retaining wall. And now coming up on the left hand side is a passenger train on platform 2, headed up by a warship, and there we go again. Here's our 125 coming through in all its glory, sound fitted, and as you can tell it's sound fitted at both ends. There's our warship, and as we leave the station area now you can see the line that goes up to the Freightliner depot, and there should be a double slip coming across here. My track maintenance driving there over on the right hand side, and then we head through this curve and out towards the viaduct. Coming off the viaduct you can see the exits that will go up to the left hand side there to the branch line station when that's constructed, and meanwhile we head down towards Helix 1. I'd left some Wago connectors in the way, but we seem to have got away with that one okay. And then back into the world of the Helix, so we're now into Helix 1 and more or less back where we started. Now looking a little closer at what work has to be achieved on that TMD area, I've put in the sort of hardware and buildings into place so we can get a better idea of what's going on. I put a retaining wall that was left over from an old layout along the far edge, so you can see the sort of effect that I'm going to have. You can see the 2 loco sheds here, the refuel point and the loco wash point, as we come across these boards, and then over to board 22, the one we've just done. And there's that shed over on the far left hand side, and then we've got our little fuel depot over on the far right. And looking at it from the other side you get a better view of the 2 loco sheds and the refuel plant there just to the left, and the loco wash plant, and then working our way back towards board 22. There's all the track work that we've sorted out, and coming right back we end up at our little fuel depot on the bottom and the other loco shed support building on the top. Now you may remember a couple of weeks ago I spoke about mojos and how we define our time and take it down into usable chunks to get work done. And I said that I would finish this board in January. Well, to be perfectly honest, it is finished, in as much as I can't do any more until I start work on board, I think this is board 23. So I've achieved a great deal. I'm very sort of proud, I suppose, of what I've got on and done. But I've only gone on and done it because I left myself strict parameters. I wasn't going to do anything else. I didn't get distracted with airbrushing or whatever. And I've come up here to do the specific job and got it done. The next video will be nothing to do with track laying, nothing at all. But the one after that, hopefully this board will be finished. So again, this is the January board, and that will be by the end of February. And then if there's any sort of lesson that I can sort of instill in you is to do the same. When you go to your railway room and you've got an hour or you've got 2 hours, go there with a specific job in mind before you start. You're going to go there and you're going to do this. And when you've done that, walk away, leave the railway room, go away. And that way you stay focused and you don't lose your mojo and you don't sort of procrastinate. I've done up here. I've come up here some days, turned on the computer, looked something up on YouTube, and then spent the next 2 hours on YouTube, not looking at rabbits and kittens, I must confess, but going straight into the depths of electronics and another blah and air crashes and a load of old junk, really. And it's so easy to get distracted, and you lose your mojo because you kind of didn't really get much done today, did I? No, we'll draw a line under that, and we're going to stay focused for 2023. Well, that was all rather emotional, wasn't it? There we go. Right, please don't forget what I mentioned earlier about the 10-minute videos, the Chadwick quickies. If there's something that you fancy, that I could lend a video to, then please leave it in the comments section. And similarly, if you read the comments and say, oh, Billy here is interested in doing a review of Western locos, and you think, oh, I've got a couple of those, I wouldn't mind that. So please leave a comment and bolster his objective. So therefore I can get a better feel whether you're into a loco review or a bit of Digitrax review, a bit of airbrushing, train building, these sort of short videos. So have a little think about it and please let me know. In the meantime, as usual, I'd like to thank the patrons and the PayPal guys who make donations that keep the channel going. Without you guys, I couldn't do it. There's the old subscribe button and a video here and here, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.